Good evening, everybody. No, sorry, we couldn't. I couldn't get any lives up today because, we've been having some problems with AT&T service in the Lower Puna area or near Leilani. So Leilani subdivision AT&T service is out right now for the past 24 hours, which is not a good thing, not a good sign, because people need their service just in case, if anybody needs to get evacuated or need help or anything like that, they don't have no service. So as far as what's happening in Leilani Estates, there is no service for AT&T. So hopefully AT&T can get that up quickly because, lava flows right now and the eruptions happening right now in Leilani Estates is just going off. And it's getting worse. So we need that AT&T service up there. The next thing too, just to give you guys an update, this morning I ended up looking. I just posted the cracks that we found. So a lady came up to me that lives right across Steam Vent Inn on Highway 130. She came up to me and told me, "Hey man, got some stuff that I wanted to share with you and see if you can come up and check it out." And so we went up to her driveway, and it's all above Mauka side of the road, above Highway 130. And boy, there's tons of cracks that she said in the last, it wasn't there yesterday, and this morning she woke up and she found some cracks on the road, on her driveway. And these cracks are getting huge, getting bigger and bigger. So there's something happening close to Highway 130. There's probably, some more lava moving into the system, moving down the rift. But with that being said, I said, well, let me see if I can document that. Documented these cracks that is forming above 130. Another thing too, just to give everybody, let everybody know, 130, if there's an eruption that starts on above 130, everybody in Lower Puna will be trapped. So just to let everybody know, down in the Lower Puna area, Seaview, Kahena, Opihikau, Kamaili Road, Kalapana, Black Sands, Kalapana Gardens, Kapa'ahu, and all those areas down below, there's cracks that is happening right now. It's getting bigger, and eruptions are starting to move up rift. So, the likelihood of another eruption opening up on or above Highway 130 is pretty possible. The chances of that is a high percentage. So with that said, please, people down there, get ready, because if that happens, we for sure there's not going to be any accessible routes or exit routes for those areas. Another thing too, I ended up talking to some of the state guys, and they're thinking about opening up a road from Sanford's Quarry to Apa'a Road. With that said, today I was like, that's kind of an idea, but that is not a good idea because you're still going over the East Rift Zone. So starting, doing something like that is pretty sketchy. So start over again. Just did this morning update for today. This morning went to a lady came to our Pu'u Honua or Puna in Pahoa, approached me and said, "Hey, there's cracks that is developing on my road. I live right across Hawaii Steam Vent Inn, right on Highway 130. Can you come and check it out?" Sure, I went up there. She said yesterday evening there was no cracks on her driveway, and now there are a bunch of cracks that is happening. There was probably like maybe 12 cracks I counted, 11 or 12 cracks I counted of on that road. It's getting bigger, so something's about to happen close by. We know lava is actually moving up rift, breaking out in fissures all over in Leilani. So we know that there's some cracks on Pomaikai, at the corner of Pomaikai and Malama, starting to steam develop a lot of steam. So we know lava is actually getting plugged up and coming up the rift. So everybody on that side of the flow, on south side of Leilani, you guys should be ready for evacuation soon, because you know the likelihood of another eruption, because it is only one way in and one way out. Highway 130, that's the only way you can get in. So everybody get ready for something to happen up there. I'm pretty sure, pretty positive something will happen close by. Not saying it's going to be on the road, or if it's above the road, we all know it's going to flow across the road. If it's below the road, we know it's not going to damage the road or anything like that. It's probably going to go down. So be ready for that. Another thing too, I took a flight this afternoon with Dave Okita, because there was a huge eruption happening in Leilani. Wanted to see what the severity of the flows was happening in Leilani. Took off around 2 o'clock. I gotta say that flow it's massive. So there is about approximately 3 or 4 fissures that is starting from Luana all the way down to Mohala. So all on from Luana Street across on Malama side, comes down Leilani Ave, crosses Leilani Ave into Ho'okupu, down to Kaupili, and down to Mohala. So we have tons of lava. When I was up there, so much lava was flowing towards the Kahukai side. I mean, when we were in Leilani at 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock on Kaupili Street, there was not that much lava. I mean, there was some lava that was flowing on the road, but it wasn't going as fast. So when we came back off the flight, went down to Kaupili again, it advanced about 100 yards, 80 to 100 yards on the road going towards Kahukai. So there was so much houses that got devastated today. On Kaupili alone, I think there was 3 or 4. One being said that one just was getting built, and that one went. And I wouldn't be doubted that more houses are being taken on multiple streets. Ho'okupu, Brother Morgan Carter, and DeQueenie, they lost their home this morning, and sorry to hear that, and prayers out to you guys, Hanale and Koilani, all you guys, prayers out to you guys. A bunch of other guys' homes got taken today. Also the fissures that is more east of Leilani and right above Lanipuna, fissure 6, 13, and 22, still pumping. I just was up there. So the severity of what we seen today on our helicopter flight was just off the wall. So we there was a flow. I think it was the 4th day of the, maybe 5th day of the eruption, the Luana flow. I think it was fissure 3 and 4 that flowed across Leilani Ave and took a bunch of homes there. We thought that, and it cooled down, it stopped. That flow, we thought it was going to be a berm. It actually became the lava that came out of this flow this morning, ended up going right over everything and started to flow straight to Kahukai area. So everybody's living on the edge right now, and everybody's on the edge. So it's just the flows is just crazy. Another thing too, when we took the flight, all the flows that was going east, like fissure 17 that was going towards Kapoho, one was going towards Kuokalasku, and one was coming straight down Puhiki. All those flows are dead. There is no active flows. All the flows that we've seen that going down to the ocean entry is all the west flows. So that's a good sign. Puhiki is saved. All those flows. There's 3 flows that was headed east. one going towards Highway 137, and no, one Highway 132. One was going towards Highway 137 where Kuokala was. Another one was going straight down where Avery Kaukalana guys live on the east side of their property. All those three flows have stalled. That's a good thing. But the other flows on the west side, was coming through Lanipuna, going straight down towards the ocean. That's still active. Still, I mean, there's the rivers that is pretty much going down. You're looking at 50 yards wide of just rushing lava around 30 miles an hour going straight down to the ocean. So, and those are caused by fissure 20, 22, 13, and 6. So those three fissures was the one that was pushing all the lava down to the ocean. There was a new ocean entry of Mackenzie State Park. If everybody's familiar to Mackenzie State Park, if you guys go down in Mackenzie State Park, go down to where the fishermen go to fish on that little point. It's kind of a small little point. Just to the left of it, there's a high cliff. Right on the other side, that's where it's flowing in. So that's where the ocean entries are. So let's wrap it up. That's what I did. Another thing too, what I want to say, AT&T, you guys better put up your guys' towers in Leilani, because a lot of people in Leilani need that service to call, first responders. Call, first responders, or even family members to come help them get their stuff out. So AT&T, please put your towers back up, man. They need it in there. Another thing too, found some cracks above Highway 130, right across the Steam Vent Inn on the Mocha side. Cracks were developed over the last 24 hours. A resident there that contacted me this morning to come up and see the cracks because they wasn't there yesterday, and it developed this morning. So that's what's happening, and there's multiple fissures in Leilani, and looks like the upper rift is actually getting some activity happening. So with that being said, everybody, that's my my evening update for my whole day. Also, another thing, all you guys out there, I know who you are. All you guys coming in to Leilani and advertising lava tours for $150 a head, better not catch you over there. Better not catch you in there, because it's not a good time to be doing that kind of stuff in Leilani. Yeah, so in Leilani, no service for AT&T. Come on, AT&T, we rely on you. Can you hear me now? No. We want to be heard. So that's why I haven't been doing any live feeds, because we don't have any service in Leilani. Other than that, with that being said, hello everybody, and like I always say is, stay classy, Puna. Aloha.
Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's call. At that time, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1. Today's conference has been recorded. If you have any objections, please disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Leslie Gordon. You may begin.
Thank you, Ernest, and welcome to everybody who's called in today. We have 4 speakers today. Wendy Stovall will represent the U.S. Geological Survey Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. Ashley Sears will represent NOAA's National Weather Service. Jessica Farrakane will represent Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And Tim Sakahara will represent the Hawaii Department of Transportation. I will reintroduce those people and spell their names as each one of them speaks. I want to start out with Wendy Stovall. That's Wendy, the usual spelling. Stovall, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, O, V as in Victor, A-L-L. Go ahead, Wendy. What's today's update?
Hey, this is Wendy Stovall. So today we are still seeing continued activity in both locations on the lower East Rift Zone and at the summit. This is kind of more of the same that we've been seeing over the past few days. The eruptive activity in the lower East Rift Zone is continuing to migrate back to the west along the fissure line. There's an approximately 2-mile-long line of activity of fountaining, low fountaining of lava, and then those fountains are feeding massive lava flows that are channelized going down to the coast. There's 2 primary channels that are going down from the locus of activity, and the easternmost channel has split into 2 down at the coast. So now there are 3 ocean entries at the coast. Lays is issuing off of those ocean entries, and hopefully we'll get a weather update to talk a little bit about that. And there seems to be a lot of lava being produced by Fissure 7, and that is in Leilani Estates. The flows themselves are moving a little bit to the north, but mostly to the south from that point. And we have field crews on the ground there monitoring the progress of that. They've had a hard time getting closer to those flows because they are so voluminous. And then if we go up to the summit is pretty socked in today. It's very cloudy, and so we haven't had a whole lot of great visual observations of what's happening at the summit, but we do have some observations from cameras that are up on Mauna Kea. I'm trying to get the exact information about where these images are coming from, but we've seen a couple of plumes rise above the clouds from imagery coming from an observatory on Mauna Kea. And we did see a plume go up to about 6,000 feet above sea level, 6,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level this morning, but it was just a minor explosion. And then yesterday afternoon, one went up to about 8,000 feet. And then yesterday at about 5 p.m., there was a magnitude 3.9 earthquake at the summit of Kilauea. That's the general update for today.
Thank you, Wendy. Next, I'd like to introduce Ashley Sears. That's A-S-H-L-E-Y, Sears, S-E-A-R-S. Ashley is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service.
Good morning, everyone. We continue to see the trade wind pattern as has been being briefed for the past couple of days. The trade generally winds are from the northeast. Today's winds are expected to be the strongest that we've seen all week and that we should see in the coming days, with gusts up to between 20 and 25 miles per hour possible. I mentioned these stronger winds mainly because if there is an explosion or a plume that occurs at the summit, as Wendy has just briefed, there's been a few, we could see the ash being carried a little farther downwind than we have seen in the past couple of days. However, because of this northeast wind, we are still going to continue to see the plume going to the southwest, pretty much from the summit down Highway 11 down to Pahola. I also want to note, though, too, with these gustier winds, the winds can also pick up any ash deposits that have recently fallen and can result in dusty conditions, possibly even reduced visibilities. We haven't had that report yet, but it is a potential with the gustier winds. As such, the National Weather Service is continuing to issue a special weather statement in effect for the Cal District, accounting for these hazards pretty much until further notice. One thing of note, Wendy was talking about the different plume heights. From a sounding that the Weather Service did earlier today, for your information, it would take a plume height of around 15,000 feet above ground level to have any ash interaction with any of a westerly flow, which would be taking it more towards the helo direction. So again, it would have to get to around 15,000 feet. most of the plumes and explosions we've seen in the past couple of days have been between the 5,000 to 8,000 feet above ground level, which is why we are seeing the ash mainly on the northeast trade winds heading down to the southwest from the summit along Highway 11. And then turning our attention to the areas around the fissures, that northeast flow is impacting down there as well. During the day, around the fissures, we do get the winds turning a little bit more to the west during the overnight hours, but they do weaken during the overnight, so we don't see too much of a turn in direction necessarily of any of the fog. Primarily, so as long as the sulfide dioxide is being emitted from the fissures, we do expect the development of the fog in the vicinity of the fissures and that northeast flow carrying them to the south and the west. And that looks to be ongoing for the time being. Also mentioned about delays. With this flow, any delays that does form as the lava is entering the ocean should keep the threat immediate around where that laze is forming at the coastline or taking it out a little into the ocean. And one last thing I wanted to touch on, because Wendy did mention about the earthquake. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is monitoring every earthquake activity. No tsunami threats at this time by any means, but just to make you aware that we are continuing to monitor every single earthquake that does occur, and products will be issued as needed.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Jessica Farrakane. Jessica is the Public Information Officer with Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Jessica is spelled the usual way. Farrakane is F as in Frank, E-R-R-A-C-A-N-E. Go ahead, Jessica.
Good morning, aloha, everybody. Not much new to report. Today is if you add them up backwards, today is the 14th day that the park is closed, most of the park. The Kahuku unit began its new increased hours yesterday, so Kahuku is open Wednesdays through Sundays, closed Mondays and Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Kahuku is located about an hour south of the main entrance, and it is on the slopes of Mauna Loa. We also have rangers, like I mentioned before, at Moku Papapa Discovery Center in downtown Hilo, Tuesdays through Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next speaker is Timothy Sakahara. Tim is the Public Information Officer for the Hawaii Department of Transportation. Timothy is spelled in the usual way. Sakahara is S as in Sam, A-K-A-H-A-R-A. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, aloha. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to get our message out. And first, just wanted to reiterate and thank all of our partners that we're working with at HDOT, including the federal and county levels. I believe everybody is committed with the same goals in mind to keep access and mobility open for the communities that are impacted by the eruption events, not only for mobility but also for evacuation purposes if necessary. Right now, Highway 130 does remain open and accessible for local traffic and is the primary focus for our efforts of keeping that mobility and connectivity open for those surrounding communities. The steel plates that are out there over the cracks are and have been performing well, which is the main reason why we have been able to keep that roadway open. And we will continue to monitor the conditions and work and make any sort of adjustments necessary in order to keep Highway 130 open for those folks to use.
Thank you, Tim.
Answer more as well, yeah, but I, either now or in the Q&A session. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Yes. Before we go to the Q&A session, I'd like to just reiterate to reporters, we have 4 people online that can answer questions from quite a variety of backgrounds. We can answer questions about the geology and volcanology of Kilauea Volcano. the National Weather Service and Winds and Weather, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and the Hawaii Department of Transportation. All reporters, please limit your initial question to one question at a time so that we can take as many questions as possible. So, Ernest, we're ready to take the first question.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1. Record your name and affiliation clearly when prompted. Your name and affiliation is required to introduce your question. To withdraw your question, you may press star 2. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1. One moment, please, for our first question. Our first question comes from Michael Phillips with Weather Boy. Your line is now open.
Hi, this is Michael Phillips with Weather Boy Weather. My question is for the National Weather Service. Yesterday, NOAA had a media call to talk about a malfunction of the GOES 17 weather satellite that was destined to become the GOES West satellite later this summer. With the failure of that weather satellite, is there any fears or concerns by the Weather Service by not having imagery and data around the volcano activity for the summer?
Yes. No, there isn't a concern at this time. We are able to still utilize the satellite that's currently up there and are able to maintain a rapid scan, so getting that up-to-date information. So at this time, there is not the concern that we will not be able to have the coverage for the time being of the volcano.
Great, thank you.
Our next question comes from Elima Lumez with EOS. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Have you been able to quantify the volume of lava now being erupted, and how does that compare to the volumes you were seeing in the first days of the eruption?
Hi, this is Wendy Stovall at the USGS. We have not quantified the volume of lava. It's something that people are working on, and it's more that we're going to try to quantify how much is coming out per, the volume per second or the volume per hour, but we have not gotten a firm number on that yet.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Tom Callis with the Tribune Herald. Your line is now open.
Yeah, Tim, can you discuss any, backup plans for Highway 130? I understand some heat-resistant concrete might be being flown in. Are there any other materials that might be tried?
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yes, there are multiple avenues we're looking to take on Highway 130 to maintain and ensure that it does stay open. Right now, there are the steel plates over it, which are performing well over the cracks. But should there be any other developments on the roadway, we are working on and planning for some contingencies in order to keep that roadway open, including filling the cracks and then having additional heat-resistant plates over so that we can continue to drive over it. We are looking at other ways to fill it, the cracks, in order to kind of insulate, if you will, the roadway and the vehicles above in order to maintain it and go over it. Fortunately, at this point, we haven't had to use those in addition to the steel plates, but we are working toward that end in order to have different contingencies available just in case for Highway 130.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Jim Roop with Westwood One News. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. I guess this first question is for Wendy. It seems there are a number of variables, Mother Nature being the number one variable here. But can you explain the science of volcanology, if I got that right? Is it an exact science? And what makes, for instance, like lava change direction? It seems like it's heavy and moves, and what makes it change direction, or do I have that wrong?
This is a really interesting question, and maybe it deserves a follow-up after we get off the call, because I feel like this is kind of a complex thing, and there's probably more leading questions that you could ask to get the information that you want. So just putting it out there, if you want to have a follow-up about this, you can email volcanomedia@usgs.gov, and I'll be happy to talk to you more. So volcanology itself as a science has progressed a lot in the past 100 years. Certainly at HBO, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory has been in existence for over 100 years, and what used to just be visual observations has morphed into quantifiable data in looking at instruments from seismometers. I mean, it's really a combination of many different types of Earth science, and we use lots of different instruments to study the things that are happening underground and looking at what's coming out of the ground, and we use all of that data and information in order to better forecast the way volcanoes will behave. And this is all over the world. The volcanology community internationally is a pretty tight-knit community, and we study volcanoes around the world to better understand how they'll behave. In the United States, there's lots of volcanoes that erupt in Alaska and Hawaii, but in other parts of the world, there are volcanoes that are also erupting all the time, similar to Kilauea, but they're maybe a different type of volcano. So it's a continually evolving and increasingly sophisticated science, but there's still uncertainty. So whether it is exact is, it's not exact. I guess that's the best answer for that. I'm sorry. What was the next part?
It's when we hear when they're talking about the geothermal plant and that the lava is moving away from the plant right now, but that could change. What does that mean? That could change. The lava can change direction. If so, what causes that?
Yeah. So lava behaves in a really it's liquid rock, right? You can think of it as liquid rock. It's very hot, but as soon as it cools down just a little bit, it starts to harden. As it hardens, it creates its own walls. It's like creating its own fence, creating its own barrier. So the area to the north of the fissure system is slightly uphill, or it's on a little bit of a flat surface. And if lava is moving across a flat surface, it will move more slowly, and it will start to cool, and then it'll create a container for itself. It'll stay insulated and hot inside of that container, but that's what's happening on the north side. So it's building up these walls. There's these perched lava ponds that are surrounding the vents that are 30 feet high, and these perched walls are pretty stable. Their overflows are happening. It's just like they're piling more material on top of themselves that are cooling. Occasionally, those walls that are containing these perched ponds of lava can fail. Just like if you had a swimming pool, an above-ground swimming pool in your backyard, and then somebody, leaned on the side really hard, and it issued forth a kind of a flood of water. So it would happen in that way, but some of the observations we've been getting from the field about the way that the flows are moving when they're breaking these barriers of the perched ponds is that it will flow, but because the slope is not so great on the north side, it does that thing where it cools on the surface and then it barricades itself again and it will inflate. So material will flow in behind it, but it's going to inflate up instead of just pour forward down onto the ground because it's creating the barrier around itself, the cooled crust around itself. The flows are primarily moving to the south because it's downhill, and that's what we are going to continue to see. When we do our lava flow forecasts, we use the line of steepest descent for the flow field. We're continually updating the topography in that area based on imagery that we're capturing from these overflights that we're doing. So the geologists out in the field are capturing images. We have these drones that are flying overhead, and we can create three-dimensional maps of the ground as it is forming, and so that informs the models that we're creating to determine where the lava flows will potentially go.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from Daryl Huff with Hawaii News Now. Your line is now open.
Thank you. We're getting kind of a call of concern from some of the businesses nearby the park that depend on the parks being open for their flow of business. And we understand that you close the park for safety reasons. But is there any kind of consideration or help through national disaster relief or anything like that for loss of business around a park when the park is closed for reasons beyond people's control?
Hi, Daryl. This is Jessica Farrakane with Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So your question is, would we provide economic relief for communities? I'm not quite sure if I'm tracking your question right.
You know, I really don't know exactly what options you would have. I'm assuming that, you know, if there's a disaster, that small businesses may be able to apply for, loss of business kind of help later on. But in terms of, you folks, are you able, and I think I know the answer to this question, but I just sort of like to hear it, are you able to take into consideration the economic impacts of your closing the park on surrounding communities?
Yeah, so we're really well aware of the economic impact the closure has on people. This is day 14, and we're looking at, based on our 2017 economic impact numbers, which I have a news release on that if you want me to share it with you for last year. This is, the impact is very serious. It's $6.5 million right now if you do the math right. And we consider that, we know about that, but the number one priority for Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is safety. We want people to stay safe. We want to keep people alive. That's not just visitors, that's also the community, that's also our park staff. The impacts so far have been very serious, but this is an active volcano, and this is nothing new for the people who live on the island of Hawaii. Kilauea has been erupting, at least in its current form, since 1983. There have been periods where people can't come into the park, but this particular situation with two eruptions happening simultaneously at the summit and the lower East Rift zone present a state of safety and hazard concerns. So we cannot open the park again until it is safe to do so.
Thank you. That's the answer I expected, and I appreciate it.
Our next question comes from Jennifer Kelleher with the Associated Press. Your line is now open.
Folks in Tohala were talking about ash being more abundant after Saturday's explosion. I'm wondering if that was to be expected given maybe wind conditions or the amount of ash. Or but why that explosion and maybe not one that was high, that flew ash higher up? And what other communities could be affected by this level of ash if the winds pick up?
This is Wendy Stovall. I think that this is probably a two-parter, one for me or one for USGS, and then the airborne part is for NOAA. So we have observed that there are several plumes. There's probably 12 different explosions occurring, at least 12 per day. Some of them are small, some of them are large. They're all producing ash, and sometimes the ash goes up to a higher elevation. If it goes up to a higher elevation, altitude, higher altitude, it will travel further downwind. And then, do you want to talk a little bit about that, Ashley?
Yeah, basically, so today does have, as I mentioned before, so today's winds are the strongest. So you could see that stronger winds means definitely that potential for the ash to make it farther. To answer the question of Pahala, definitely to be impacted. We're also highlighting for Wood Valley and Nalehu. I apologize if I missed that. But those communities are the ones that we're really highlighting for that potential. But yes, winds are, we have gusty winds at the surface. As they get a little further higher up, they are a little stronger. So if the plumes are higher up, then the stronger winds can carry them farther. But today's the strongest. After today, we do see some weakening in the winds. So by this weekend, we will see it cutting back more to impact more closer to this immediate summit area, continuing down Highway 11.
Our next question comes from Andrew Hay with Reuters. Your line is now open.
Hi, this is a question for Wendy. We're at week 3 of the eruption. We've had that big eruption last Thursday, the 30,000 foot altitude one, and since the weekend, much higher emissions of lava on the East Rift Zone. And I wondered if we'd entered if the eruption had in any way sort of plateaued. It had peaked in terms of activity. You mentioned 12 explosions a day, so it's a fairly steady activity at the summit. Voluminous flows on the East Rift. I wondered if you could say kind of where we are in the grand scheme in terms of the overall eruption. Are we sort of in a middle section now?
Hi, Wendy Stovall, USGS. I think that's a good way to summarize it. We are in kind of the steady state. We're seeing continued eruption of lava on the surface in the lower East Rift Zone. All of our geophysical data and our seismic data is telling us that we'll probably continue to see that lava erupting on the surface, and there's no indication that the volume of what's coming out of the ground will decrease or increase right now. So it seems like a steady state down there. And also, same goes for the summit. We're still seeing lots of deflation occurring at the summit and these continued earthquakes, a pretty high rate of seismicity. So, yes, continued explosions similar to what we've been seeing from the summit. So saying that we are in this, middle stage, or, we're in the, it's erupting and this is what it's doing, and it's probably going to do this for a little while longer.
Could you quantify a little while?
I cannot quantify that, unfortunately.
Okay.
What I can say is that the monitoring data that we're getting right now is indicating that we're just going to keep seeing what we're seeing. As soon as something shifts, if we start to see deflation around the lower East Rift Zone, then that will indicate to us that the magma is probably running out in that area. There's lots of different possibilities. It could pause in the lower East Rift Zone. Typically, Hawaiian eruptions of this style the ones that are issuing the lava will pause, and then they will, the pressure will build up, more magma will accumulate below, and then it'll resume. We haven't had a pause since, just in the first week of the eruption. Basically, when we shifted from just a low fountaining and not very much lava, no extensive lava flows, into this really extensive lava production phase. And then at the summit, the exact scenario that we're seeing up there is kind of the playbook for the 1924 eruption. So then it lasted for 3 weeks. There is a difference between what's happening now and what happened in 1924. In 1924, there was no lava erupting on the surface. Everything that was drained from the summit lava lake was injected into the East Rift zone without being erupted. So it's possible that this, we aren't really sure how long the summit activity will start, but we expect it to be at least 3 weeks, similar to 1924.
Thanks.
Our next question comes from Jenny Cooper. Your line is now open.
Hi, I'm not sure if this is for Ashley, or Wendy, but I'd really like to have described for the layperson, the person who doesn't live on Hawaii, but might be thinking of coming to the Big Island, the predicted range for any significant ashfall from a larger summit eruption, or the spread of lays from ocean entry. Saying that there's lays near the eruption sites and a few miles downwind doesn't really speak to people, I think, to how limited the impact of lays really is. And then with ashfall, we're trying to let people know, if they're going to Pu'u, Black Sand Beach, or Hilo, should they be concerned that they don't have the same kind of ashfall protection masks that are being issued to residents? So just trying to get, a sense of the true potential hazards or lack of hazards for people who aren't right in Pahoa or right at the summit.
Okay, this is Wendy Stovall, USGS. I appreciate your wanting to get this right, because we've seen a lot of incorrect reporting on this, and I feel like we need to kind of drive these points home about the reality of the hazards, especially in regards to lays. Lays is a very localized issue. It's really only around the ocean entry that you're going to get the super high concentrations of hydrochloric acid. So that's not something that anybody should be worrying about. People should steer clear of those ocean entry lay swims. That's all. As far as the ash is concerned, we have had some reports of ash at Pu'u, the beach, Black Sands Beach down there. And again, it depends on how high a plume is put up, and also how concentrated the ash is in that plume, how much ashfall is going to come out of it. Having a little bit of ash fall onto the ground or a vehicle is certainly not something that is going to keep you from driving or prevent you from, you could use a handkerchief. There's lots of guidance on there's an volcanic ash website, and there's lots of guidance for people who want to know about this to get a real sense of it. But the amount of ash that's coming out is, when people are driving up Highway 11, they'll see that there's ash on the road, but I wouldn't. This is really a Kilauea volcano only issue, and there are 5 volcanoes on the island of Hawaii, and the island of Hawaii is very big, and this is a really small area that's being impacted when you look at the whole island of Hawaii.
Thank you.
Ernest, how many more questions do we have in the queue?
Right now we have about 6 more questions.
I'm afraid we won't have time for all of those. We've gone quite a bit over. Let's take 3 of those and call it a day.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Our next question comes from Denise Layton with USA Today. Your line is now open.
Hi, my question is for Tim. Tim, can you speak to how long it will take to implement those backup plans and the backup to your backup plans? And then if Highway 130 is compromised before Chain of Crater Road is open, is the only avenue left after that the airlifting evacuation of residents in Kalapana?
Yeah, hi, Denise. So the plans are already in place as far as working on those contingencies for Highway 130 and getting everything ready. And as I mentioned, we are continuing to monitor. We are aware that the conditions can change at any moment's notice, but we are working toward that end. Yes, regarding Chain of Craters Road, we are working with our partners at the National Park Service and FEMA and the Federal Highways Administration as well to work on that as a possible alternative and emergency or evacuation route. It should be noted with that as well, with the Chain of Craters Road, that is that if there is a need to use that avenue once the improvements have been made on the road, it would be an evacuation-only route. It would not be, for example, it wouldn't be like a two-way traffic, coming and going type of scenario or road. It would just be an emergency evacuation route for folks to exit the area only, not to kind of re-enter the area. But in addition, the Governor David Ige and his administration as well is committed to keeping access and mobility open. So not only are there multiple contingencies for Highway 130, we're working on Chain of Craters Road, but yes, the talks and discussions have been underway as well for possible air evacuations if it actually did come to that.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question comes from Tom Callis with the Tribune Herald. Your line is now open.
Yeah, Tim, are there any other possible alternate routes that are being explored?
Well, as you know, Highway 137 was cut off when the lava did make the ocean entry. However, north of Highway 132 and 137, the beach road access has been worked on. We've been working with the county and the state and federal levels have been working on that as well up to Pu'u Road as an alternate access heading north from Highway 132. And so that is another possible option and route in addition, for those heading north on the east side of the island. But we really are focused, the primary focus or priority is Highway 130, making sure that remains open and accessible for those local residents to be able to access the community and evacuate if necessary.
What's the status of the Chain of Craters right now? How far along is that? How close are we to seeing some work on the ground?
Well, that's difficult to say at this point, but we are close, and all parties are working together and in coordination to make that happen. As you know, you may know, there is some lava from prior events that would need to be cleared and mitigated before that is open and accessible. But all parties are working as quickly as possible just to make sure that everything is taken care of as far as logistically for that road to be a possible evacuation route.
We have time for a final question.
Our next question comes from Dan Sakia with Hawaii247.com. Your line is now open.
Hi, yeah. I know this is an ever-changing number, but do you folks have an estimate of the number of acres covered by lava from this lower East Rift Zone event?
Hi, Wendy Stovall, USGS. That is a great question, and I don't have an area of coverage. I will investigate that, and we'll try to put out a message about that. We have a new feature on our website, by the way. It's a little mini update. If you go to the website, it's on the right side of the page. It's surrounded by a red box. So I'll try to get that in there. And then also that update, the little mini update, we're going to try to do those more frequently. Those will be going out via RSS feed as well. And if you click on the more links, you'll see the list of them. And then if anybody wants to have full access to the RSS so you can put it into your reader, you could just email volcanomedia@usgs.gov.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry to call an end to this. I know there were a few more questions, but we've gone way past our allotted time. Please do join us again tomorrow We will have a continuing telephone briefing at 11 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time every day. Some of the same speakers, but also some additional speakers. They'll change every day. So please join us again tomorrow. And in the meantime, don't forget to go to the websites. All of the agencies who are online and speaking today have websites: the National Weather Service, the Hawaii Volcano Observatory, Hawaii Volcanoes National Parks, and so forth, and the Department of Transportation. So please do check those websites for the most up-to-date current status announcements, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
This now concludes today's call. All lines may disconnect at this time.